No, baby, that's for somebody else. We're just gonna keep you right where you're at right now.
It doesn't matter what you think.
The Wrestling Realm presents Break It Down with Brian H.
Ladies and gentlemen, history was made tonight at the WWE Royal Rumble. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. I'm your host, Brian H. Waters. This show, of course, is brought to you by the Wrestling Realm. If you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe to the channel. You know, if you're not watching, hit us up on YouTube. I know it's a lot of people out there. Shout out to y'all watching on Twitter and Periscope and Facebook. Make sure you hit us up on YouTube. Subscribe to that channel. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. That's what we're trying to do. And also follow myself at Brian H. Waters. I am so excited tonight to talk about the WWE's Royal Rumble. Sometimes I do these shows, I go backwards, or sometimes I go from the first match. I'm going right to what you may have seen on the opening graphic. That is the one and only Bianca Belair making history tonight. Man, a star indeed. A star was born. Wrestling fans, we knew it. We knew this all along, especially those on Black Wrestling Twitter. But we knew Bianca was a star. Tonight, she went out there and shined. She was early, very early in the Royal Rumble. So you're a little bit concerned. I said a lot of times, when there is one person that everybody's picking to win, right? That everybody said, oh, this is the clear-cut winner of the Royal Rumble. They seem to go in other directions, right? And that's what I was worried about. I said, okay, Bianca had that look. She's riding it with so much momentum. But then all of a sudden, there's Bayley. Right, and Bayley gets beat by her. So you're thinking, you know what? It's possible that Bayley could be the one to eliminate Bianca. It's possible that Bayley could be the one to cost Bianca this opportunity. And then what happens? They go pretty much the distance. I mean, it was so much spots in that match, and we'll get into that. But like I said, I was just kind of a little bit concerned. I'm like, man, we want this for Bianca so bad because we've seen the struggles. We've seen how they put together the program for her, letting us know everything that she had been through that got her to this moment. So you're thinking, okay, they telling us, you know what, Bianca's going to be a star. We don't have to have her win the Royal Rumble, but she'll be the star and we'll go from there. But then tonight, I mean, for her, like I said, to be pretty much in the ring almost the entire time. Shout out to Naomi. Shout out to, like I said, shout out to Bayley. Bayley went the distance too. Obviously she wasn't in like the final four, but for her to go and be in there that long, I mean, it just goes to tell you how great it was. And to be honest with y'all, this match was much better than the men's Royal Rumble. And the men's was good. I enjoyed that. But the women's, I mean, that was just one of those that took you for a ride. It took you for an emotional roller coaster. It took you for a ride as a wrestling fan that you like to go on because you have this person you want to win. You have this person that you're invested in, but then you're like, but what if they don't win? And then obviously, and I think we all knew Charlotte Flair was going to kind of be there in the end. And sure enough, she was. And she was there in the end. And you're like, here we go again. They're going to go Charlotte because she did, she was out for a while. We're going to get the title back on her. But I kind of felt it was obvious Charlotte wasn't going to win because usually when you have somebody that's a protagonist, the way that Lacey Evans has been and her dad, you knew that would maybe cause some friction eventually. But even though it wasn't necessarily the case, I just didn't feel Charlotte was going to win this year. I was like, okay, her program is already set. So I don't think, she's going to win the Royal Rumble. But then it was Rhea Ripley. So you're thinking this, right? And I'm just putting some, I'm thinking Rhea was there last year. She was supposed to have this big match at WrestleMania at Raymond James Stadium. and you're thinking, well, maybe she gets her get back, right? Maybe, just maybe she gets her get back. Maybe it's a chance that she can get in that match with the Charlotte Flair or with somebody to have that opportunity. But then that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen as Rhea Ripley goes to, her and Bianca. And like I said, just so many cool spots, right? Bianca and Naomi. I was sitting here watching with my wife, and without saying too much, she's a teacher, and she saw that moment as an opportunity to showcase to her students, like, look, you got two black women working together. I thought the coolest part was you see them fight, and they said, no, let's work together. And I was like, oh man, this is great. We seen Bianca and Sasha work together, and I thought that was a cool moment. But just to see how Naomi would grab Bianca's hair to use it for her advantage. So overall, I was super impressed. Alexa Bliss. When you go back and look at her coming in, she's Alexa Bliss, all the stuff going on with the Fiend, and they wasn't having it. And how about Rhea Ripley just showing like, no, I mean business. I ain't got time to even let you go into that next space because I need you out of here so I can focus on winning this match. So I thought that part was really good too. And then you like I said, you obviously you had your legends come in there. I saw somebody say on Twitter they didn't overstay. You didn't see Tori Wilson or Victoria in there for 20, 30 minutes. You didn't think, well, Mickie James is still there. I thought it was a cool spot with Alicia Fox winning the title, the 24/7 title, only to lose it again. So I thought that was pretty cool. So overall, man, I was really satisfied with this Royal Rumble. Really satisfied with it, with the women's Royal Rumble match, just because, and like I said, the right person won. Yes, this is who we all want. This is the person we all want, and it happened. No need to play the shuffle in the decks and say, no, we're not going to go in this direction. No, that's not necessary. Give it to Bianca. And Bianca was out there, and she was victorious, proving she is the EST of WWE. But now, as we set our sights on WrestleMania, and there's going to be so much to talk about. I mean, we're going to go through Black History Month with the promos and stuff. And I think that's another cool thing. Bianca has been consistently, unapologetically black, from wearing the Black Lives Matter, wearing, iconic figures on her gear. This is something that has been amazing to see. And it's something that you don't mind sharing and showing your children. And, she doesn't have to be, she can be herself. At the end of the day, she's an athlete. We see herself being turned up. Sasha Banks, the same thing. We see Stephanie McMahon was quoted saying she sees more confidence in Sasha Banks. So that's another one of the cool things that we're getting to see right here. I thought Sasha and Carmella had a great match, to see them go back and forth. We've seen the matches before, but it wasn't, I felt like it was one of those matches. It was believable. Like, okay, is Reginald going to do too much that's going to get in Sasha's way? In the end, Sasha pulled off the victory. But I saw somebody post something. They posted old Sasha and new Sasha, and they made it clear. They said, this is a completely different Sasha Banks. That is not the same Sasha Banks we saw last year. And, not last year, 3 years ago with the purple reddish hair. Blue hair Sasha is somebody that's totally different, and I think that is the coolest thing. And like I said, we're seeing a shift. Now we get ready to go into WrestleMania, and as we get ready to go into WrestleMania, right, where do we go? And there's gonna be, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be bringing you a lot of shows talking about this, and I'm gonna, as we get closer and closer, as the stories develop, as the trash talking happens, there will be content from myself, from the real Dwayne Allen, as we will be able to break stuff down and keep it 100 for you. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Not gonna get into too much tonight, but just knowing that right now that is penciled in. We all know things get changed. We all remember when Becky Lynch won the Royal Rumble it wasn't just her and Ronda Rousey. It ended up being her and Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. So I really hope this stays between just those two. I don't need to see. I really don't. I don't need to see Sasha Banks and Bayley and Bianca Belair. I really hope it stays between those two. So only time will tell. But congratulations to Bianca Belair. She went out there, did her thing. The moment was real. You saw the clips. I don't know if you didn't. Go on WWE's Instagram or Twitter. I'm pretty sure if you've done so, you'll see her and her husband celebrating afterwards backstage. That's when, when it comes to the realism of pro wrestling, it's right there. It's right there. That is when it gets real, folks. When you see those moments, you saw the emotion in her eyes. It was the same thing with Sasha and Bayley winning the tag titles. They talked about the fight that they put forth to win those titles, to get those titles. They talked about the fight. So make sure y'all check that out if you haven't done so. Now, let's move on. Goldberg, Drew McIntyre, Goldberg, WWE Championship. Real quick, it was a quick match. Boom, 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 boom. I thought it was interesting. I love the story that was being told here because for a moment, you thought Goldberg could win this thing. Drew looked like he was hurt. Drew outside holding his ribs, and it's like, okay, he's going to fight. But if Goldberg hits a couple more spears and hits that jackhammer, it's over. And quite frankly, he did. In the end, Drew McIntyre found a way to get it done. And he put him down with a couple claymores and earned the respect of Goldberg. And so that was, I thought that was good. He has another legend. Looked like he's going to have to take down. More on that later. And so, but yeah, if y'all just jumping in, appreciate you tuning in. Drop comments if you want to, you got something to say. I'll definitely present them on screen. If you got questions, if you haven't done so, make sure you subscribe and follow us at Wrestling Realm on Twitter and Instagram. And then there is always Facebook and YouTube. So, and we're on all social media platforms as well. I mean, all podcasting platforms as well. Matter of fact, I'll throw that right up there for you. So, man, like I said, what a night. I mean, this is the road to WrestleMania. Like this right here is the road to WrestleMania. And I'm excited about it. I'm excited to see what we get from it. Just also let you know, if you reply on Twitter, I don't want to be rude, but yeah, you probably will have to drop the comments into the comment section. That way, you go on Periscope, drop it in, or go on YouTube or Facebook and drop it in those comment sections so that I can get it. Otherwise, I won't, But moving on, let's talk about the tribal chief, Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is still your WWE Universal Champion. A brutal match between him and Kevin Owens. And that was a tough spot for them to be in. I know for me, I was just on this emotional high from the Women's Royal Rumble to see Bianca Belair win the championship. And even though they gave us, I think they did a little Bad Bunny spot, still, it was still like a lot, so I had to come down. Not gonna lie to you. No love for Matt Riddle. I'll get on. Not really. Ray T. Rogers, Urban Sports Scene, jumping in. I believe that's saying just Ray from the Urban Sports Scene. I'll get into Matt Riddle later, but I loved everything about they tried to bring us down, and by the time Roman and Kevin Owens picked up their spots, I was able to, I thought so. Ray from the Urban Sports Scene. Make sure y'all check out that podcast or wherever you get your podcasting platforms. Ray and my boy Wiley over there doing their thing. I always enjoy listening to their shows. But I was sitting there, man, and I'm like, Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns really beating a smack out of each other all over the arena. And I thought it was brilliant for KO to use the handcuffs. But one of the things I just didn't understand, well, I understand, but I saw Kevin Steen when he went up there and hit the swanton, like just gives up the body, just trying to win this match, trying to do whatever he could to win this match. And I'm like, Man, and he still couldn't keep the big man down. And just when he thought he had Roman, just when he thought he had him, nope. He should have made sure the ref was out of the way. And that's when Roman was able to kick the ref. And I thought that was brilliant. With these two, it's underrated how well they work together. And I think down the line, when we start talking about the legacy of Roman Reigns, we're going to have to put Kevin Owens as one of his best nemesis. When we go down the line, when we look in the future, when we start having these conversations, well, who was his best rivalry? Who was his best matchups? You're going to have to put KO in that conversation. So I'm looking forward to those days, because this was a good match. I don't really have to see it again. I don't need to see it at WrestleMania, but I thought this was a good match. Now I'm interested to see. We got the Royal Rumble winner, Edge. Edge went out there, won the Royal Rumble tonight. I was very excited about that. I picked Daniel Bryan. I mentioned that. That's my guy. Anybody who knows me knows that's my favorite wrestler of all time. And shout out to both of those titles. He held both of them at WrestleMania 30. But the fact is, when he got eliminated, I was like, oh, man. So I'm looking and I see Riddle. I see Edge. I see Seth Rollins, Braun Strowman. I'm like, oh, man. And Ray asked about no love for Riddle, man. I'm just not a Matt Riddle fan. I understand it's the realism with the no shoes and all that. I don't like this gear. And I get annoyed. If he was a heel, he'd be the perfect heel for me. And I don't not want to see him on TV. He's not that bad. But I want to see when he's on there, I want to see him get beat up. I want to see him get his butt kicked. So, I'm watching him and I'm like, man, after Daniel Bryan was eliminated, I was disappointed. But then we saw Seth Rollins. I'm like, man, I didn't even think Rollins was going to win. Braun Strowman comes back, looks better than ever before. And I thought, maybe he probably could win this thing. But in the end, when Edge was the last person, I knew Randy Orton would be somewhere around. And I was like, all right, but I honestly could not see Randy Orton winning this, considering everything going on with the Fiend right now. Now, there could have been a swerve. Randy Orton could have won. The Fiend could have went out there, boom, boom, boom. Next thing you know, now he's a thorn in his side. That was not the case. Instead, we saw Randy Orton and get eliminated by Edge, and Edge is going to WrestleMania. And this is going to be fun to watch. Who will Edge challenge? Does he challenge Drew McIntyre? Will Drew McIntyre even be the champion? Or does Edge go over to SmackDown? He's never been a Universal Champion. He's been a WWE Champion. He's been a World Heavyweight Champion. Does he go to SmackDown and challenge the Tribal Chief? Does he say, hey, I'm one of the greatest SmackDown superstars in the history of this brand. I want a shot at Roman Reigns. I don't think people really thought about that. I guess he's kind of been on Raw, but SmackDown was that was the home. That was the home for Edge for many years. So this could be an opportunity for him to go over there. Now, I think we like to believe that Roman's going to have a box office opponent, but Edge lose, and then there's not, it's not no shame in that. But here's another thing about Edge winning the Royal Rumble. If Edge loses the Royal Rumble, he will go down in history as the only multi-winner to not win the championship at WrestleMania. Now, let me rewind this real quick. Hulk Hogan, when he won the Royal Rumble in 91, there was not a stipulation that you automatically get the title shot. He did get the title shot at Sergeant Slaughter, and he won. So aside from not being the stipulation, Shawn Michaels, he won it in 95, didn't win. 96, he won. Stone Cold Steve Austin won in 97, didn't win. 98, he won. 2001, he won. Randy Orton, he won the title at WrestleMania 33. He didn't win it at WrestleMania 25. So Triple H won the title. He won 2 Royal Rumbles, and he won the title at one of the Royal Rumbles, but he also won the title at WrestleMania 18. I think those are the only multi-winners. No, John Cena. Yeah, I think John Cena won a couple of Royal Rumbles. I know Batista won a couple of Royal Rumbles. So Edge could be trending in dangerous territory because I know it's kind of hard for me to see him win a championship, but I could honestly see him beating Drew. I don't see him beating Roman Reigns. So that's going to be something to pay attention to as we do move forward into WrestleMania season. But congratulations to Edge. I know a lot of people out there saying Edge didn't need it, but I think in a pandemic, WrestleMania right now, it's penciled in, right? They're saying we're going to have fans, but we got to be real, folks. There's still a lot of uncertainties because, yeah, while there's a vaccine out, there's also another strand, and we don't know about this other strand. So you may believe that WWE will still try to push. We don't know. With that being said, it's still a lot of questions. So they could say, okay, we're gonna go with Edge. Let's give him another run. I personally wouldn't hate it. Edge, technically, he would have. No, I don't. It's hard to really say where he would have been. Like, he probably could have retired by now, just because he probably would have done so much more. Right? You look back at 2011 WrestleMania 27. Apparently, there was rumors that either that Edge and Christian were getting ready to go into a rivalry for the World Heavyweight Championship. For one, I just knew Del Rio was going. I said, man, Del Rio about to win the title. He didn't. And then the next night on Raw, Edge has to relinquish the championship. So when that happened, it was so unfortunate. But he probably would have had about 5 to 7. Maybe he still would be wrestler. Maybe now he would still be hanging up. So with that being said, maybe he still had a few more years to be on top. And I would think that, okay, if he wins the Royal Rumble, considering the talent, right? You could have went. This is one of them weird years, though, because on Raw, there's not really, to me, you could have went with somebody else. Like, you could have went with Riddle, but I don't really see who's like that next man up just yet. On SmackDown, obviously everybody wanted to see maybe a Big E. But then again, Big E's not beating Roman right now. Then you have a potential for Daniel Bryan, like I mentioned before. But Daniel Bryan, nobody really thought he would beat the Tribal Chief. He was like, okay, hopefully he wins the Royal Rumble. But you ain't think he was going to beat the Tribal Chief. Let's be real. So this was a weird year. So with that being said, I don't think it was a bad idea to put the title on Edge. Put the Royal Rumble winner on Edge. I think the story of WrestleMania will be, as far as Royal Rumble winners, I think the bigger story will be Bianca Belair comes away with the championship. Because I'm not 100% sure Edge leaves with the title, but I'm kind of about 70% sure Bianca leaves with the title. But we also got to see what happens, how her star power is continuing to rise. What Sasha's doing, is Sasha's star power rising even more, where you don't want to take the championship. Like I said, so much to dissect. And that's what made this Royal Rumble so interesting. No matter what, the Royal Rumble is one of those pay-per-views that no matter what, you always enjoy it, and it was weird. Maybe, hopefully, a lot of people were staying safe. I know for me, last year I was out of town, so I was obviously watching it alone on a network. But this is probably one in a while, because usually I'm watching it with, if it's not my son and daughter, I'm watching it in a party. And that's always fun. When you're watching it, you counting down with your homeboys, your homegirls, and y'all have 3, 2, 1, who's up next? People got side bets. So that was weird this year, but I thought WWE did a great job production-wise. The Royal Rumble would have really looked weird in an empty arena, the way WrestleMania looked. And obviously, I always say I believe they, hindsight being 2020, wish they would have thought of the Thunderdome around the time of WrestleMania last year. But I thought they did a phenomenal job the way this was produced. The fans, it's harder. You don't get that loud pop. Carlito was the surprise entrance. I was never a big Carlito guy. I never really saw like, oh, he's good in the ring, but the character. And I tweeted that. I'll shout out to my boy Oh man, shout out to my boy Will. Where I said that, he's like, "Come on, man, we gotta talk." So, I would definitely be looking forward to talking with him. But I just wasn't a big Carlito guy. I like the spot with Bad Bunny though. I like the way that was used. Miz and Morrison. Miz and Morrison always will do Miz and Morrison things, and that's what they did at the Royal Rumble tonight. So, here's what and I'm gonna give a shout out to my boy Will Mahoney at Heel Will Mahoney. Check him out on the Big Gold Belt podcast. He says, he said on Twitter, Roman Reigns has teased WrestleMania opponents in Daniel Bryan, Big E, Nakamura, Cesaro, or even Lesnar, Goldberg, Cena in the wings, right? Drew McIntyre does not have that depth of opponents. Drew McIntyre quite simply needs Edge at WrestleMania. So that's something to think about. I always follow Will, I always enjoy talking wrestling with him. Had an opportunity to be on the Big Gold Belt podcast. I know they'll be returning soon from their break. So I'll definitely be looking forward to hearing what they have to say about a lot of this. So, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to that's going to be it. I appreciate everybody for tuning in to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. Keeping it 100. Make sure if you haven't done so, go ahead, subscribe, download the podcast. Help us with the download numbers. Go on Apple Podcasts, rate and shares. Let us know. They don't tell us. So let us know when you rate the podcast. Just simply tweet us at Wrestling Realm and say, hey, I saw the podcast, I rated it, boom, here's my screenshot. We'll definitely give you a shout out. Also, YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Let us know if you subscribe too. I appreciate each and every one of y'all who have done so, who have watched the show, who have told your friends about the show. It's real cool. You go to a wrestling show and somebody say, hey man, I know you from the Wrestling Realm. I'm always going to be one to talk. I love talking wrestling. So that's what I do. Is what I've been doing since I was almost born. So, but ladies and gentlemen, as always, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Break It Down with Brian H. So long, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Break It Down with Brian H. Hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell so you get notified every time the Wrestling Realm posts new content.